Hey everybody, welcome to this new webinar, WeWeb webinar. And today I'm not alone because I have a special guest, Javi from SmartSuite. Hi Javi, how you doing?
Hey everyone, good to see you. Good to see everyone here.
Yeah, it seems like you're a lot on the chat already. So hello to you all. Hello Jason, hello Mandy, hello Vasken, hello JP. It's been a long time. Nice. So today, live with SmartSuite because we've got a new integration with them. And that will showcase during this live and basically build a CRM on top of the SmartSuite data using WeWeb. But first, I will let the floor to Avi to uh, talk to us about SmartSuite for people that don't know the product, and then I will just talk a bit about WeWeb, and then we'll deep dive really fast into the app we'll be building. So the floor is yours, Avi.
Thank you. Okay. Hello everyone. Great to see a lot of familiar faces and plenty of new faces. We're across multiple channels this morning, or this afternoon, wherever you guys are. Um, so seeing, on our end, we're seeing all the comments come in. So great to see everyone on all the different channels. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, on SmartSuite channels, WeWeb channels, and so on. So the purpose of this webinar is really to showcase the partnership that we launched between WeWeb and SmartSuite and how easy and the steps to get started with building a front end application using SmartSuite data as the backend. So I'll just give a quick brief about SmartSuite so those who are not familiar yet understand what SmartSuite is, and then I'll turn it back to Quinn so he can share a little bit more about WeWeb and hopefully show us a quick demo of what can be done with WeWeb and SmartSuite. So SmartSuite is a no-code work management solution. What the reason we entered the market or the gap we identified is typically you see either traditional no-code applications or project management applications. And so at SmartSuite, we combine the power of both, giving you a relational database, a no-code relational database that has some extra power over, existing solutions on the market. Where you can, one example is you can link records across the entire workspace. You don't have to sync bases or stay in the same base to link records, and so that opens up a lot of the record limitations and so on. So many powerful features on the or improvements on the no-code relational database aspect, but then also combining the power of project management, which enables users to manage any type of process or project on SmartSuite. And obviously, a significant component of having such a solution is being able to deploy front end applications with ease. Using the data that you have in SmartSuite, whether that's your database or project management or CRM or whatever that is. And so for that, we're excited to have launched this integration. We're almost, I think, a month old, but still kind of gearing up and getting all of our partners trained on WeWeb and hopefully some WeWeb partners trained on SmartSuite. And so we're excited to have this webinar to share with everyone kind of the next steps of how you can get started building applications with WeWeb using SmartSuite data. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Nice. So for WeWeb, WeWeb is a no-code front-end web app builder. So that might sound really technical and complex. In the end, it's a tool to create using no-code the visible part of web applications. So meaning, let's say, for example, you've got data in SmartSuite. What we'll do today, have you got data, I don't know, anywhere else in the custom backend, in another tool? You've got also like your own authentication system. Using WeWeb, you'll be able to create web applications on top of this that are responsive. So you can design from mobile to desktop. And you can also have really complex workflows and reactivity to user interaction. Meaning if, for example, the user, what will do during the live, basically, like you click on a button, you fill a form, you're like changing a card in a kanban, you'll be able to update your data in your backend. So here it will be in SmartSuite. And yeah, basically that's pretty much it for us. And we are only focused on the, maybe no-code tools that are monolithic that let you like do the whole database and the front end. For us, we're really only focused on the front end. So you have to use another tool like SmartSuite. So yeah, I think we'll deep dive in the use case right away.
Yeah,
And
excellent. I just want to say
yeah,
we're seeing all the comments, and so if you guys have any questions, we're hoping to make this interactive. Please chime in with your questions, and we'll do our best to highlight them throughout.
exactly. Just I wanted to say thank you. Cool. Let me share my screen. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. If it's a bit small, please tell me and I will do a quick zoom, because I know that sometimes it can be a bit small on small screens. So basically, what I will show you is that the final app that was created using WeWeb that use SmartSuite data. So it's basically a CRM. So I hope everybody knows what a CRM is, but basically it's to handle your deals in a pipeline, like your commercial deals. So most of the tools you would use for this, for example, are Salesforce or HubSpot. But when you want to use like a custom one, you could do this using no code. And the first thing I have to do is actually to log in inside the CRM, because the data is obviously protected. So I've added authentication, and then I will be able to see my data. Okay, so now I'm logged in. And what you see now is the kanban, so where the deals are. And also, I will show you just after, but I've got the contacts and the partners. But basically, this is a working web app, so I can even change, like deals in my pipeline. I can change their status. I can search for deals. So for example, you see that I'm matching only one CRM. Okay, I will zoom a bit. Is it better now? And by the way, yeah, we'll stop already because we've got a nice question. Avi, how does SmartSuite differentiate from other no-code tools?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I tried covering that originally. Maybe you joined a few minutes, and so I'll touch on that real quick again. In short, SmartSuite combines two categories that traditionally have been two completely separate categories. One is project or process management, task management. The other one is relational database. And at SmartSuite, we did our best to combine both into one platform so you can run your projects, processes, CRM, and no code database all in one platform. And then we also made sure to solve specific pain points people have with existing relational databases, such as being able to link records across solutions, having a My Work section that rolls up a user's tasks, assignee level permissions, and many more. And so that's why we position ourselves as a work management platform, because what we're seeing is the what we're seeing is customers are using us for both aspects, both the data and the process, project, and task aspect. So, yeah.
And we've got another question. So do you integrate with Gmail? And because I would my email exchange with a client get automatically captured into SmartSuite. Okay. Yeah, basically, do you like link with Gmail?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, thank you for that question. There are multiple ways to accomplish this. So, first of all, SmartSuite does have native automations with Gmail. So, we've got a few basic actions and triggers, and we're expanding those very quickly. Well, actually, we have actions and triggers to Gmail are coming very soon. It's already marked as coming soon, so I can tell you it's probably here within a few weeks. And then we also we see customers constantly relying on make.com, Zapier.com, and Ply.io to accomplish similar things. I personally use Ply.io on my Gmail, and I pull emails from Gmail directly into SmartSuite records, save them as comments, and so on. Hopefully that answers your question.
Cool. I see that also Chris is answering some stuff on the SmartSuite base. Like we'll deep dive in the base in like just a few minutes, because I will show you how it's structured. But basically, I will continue right now. We'll continue on the WeWeb app. So basically, you've got your pipeline. You can also add a new deal in the pipeline. I won't do this right now because we'll do this just after doing the use case. Then you can go to your contact page, because each deal is linked to a partner, which is linked to a contact. So you see I've got all my contacts here. I can edit them, also delete them. I can search for one if I want. So for example, RN. I can also add a new one. And the last one is partners. So the same thing, but for companies. So you see they are all here. You can also search for them, add a new one, edit one, delete one. So I want to go, I went really fast on this because basically we'll redo part of this during this webinar. But the thing I want to show you is actually my SmartSuite base that I'm using. So I've been using the partner CRM. No, that's, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Avi, that's a template you've got in SmartSuite when you're signing up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a template available for anyone signing up for SmartSuite. If you can, when you go to set up a new solution, you have the option of setting up a solution from a template, and you will find there the partner CRM as well as many other CRMs.
So I changed it a bit, but basically it's almost the same one you have when you're signing up. But what I really like with SmartSuite is that, as Chris has mentioned, it's kind of like a database in the way that you've got a table for each type of object, for example, partners, pipelines, and contacts. And what you do is that you basically link them to each other. So for example, I've got partners, which are basically companies that are linked to contacts. So you see here, it's actually a link to another record in my contacts table. And that's really powerful because you know that you'll be able to, like, it's a clean way to handle your data. And the cool thing is that in WeWeb, you'll be able to also redo these links between tables so that you'll be able to display the right, for example, the right contact for the right company. Like what we'll be doing in the pipeline, basically, we'll be displaying the right company and the right contact. So, and that's really powerful. And also what I really like is that you've got this no-code way of handling your database. So you can create a new column, give it a type. So for example, text, single select, multiple select, date, email, anything you want. It's really easy to edit and add a new field. So no need to do some programming to do this. And that's really cool. And yeah, now what we can do is that we can deep dive in the WeWeb app already to show you how we implement SmartSuite inside WeWeb. So this is the WeWeb editor. So basically, that's where you will be able to create an app using no code. So for people that maybe are used to it, it's kind of like Webflow or Elementor, you know, this kind of tools where you can create websites using no code. The only thing is that, and we'll see this just after, but you can also add what we call workflows that enable you to react to user interactions. I'm just checking because apparently the screen is blurry.
Yeah, it might help to make the screen a little bigger.
Can do this.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a little better. I guess if anyone can let us know how they're seeing the screen on their end. You might want to go full screen if you're on YouTube or LinkedIn so that you have more screen space.
And I think sadly that LinkedIn handles only, we'll try to enter full screen, but I think LinkedIn is capped to 720p. So if you want to see the live in full HD, you will have to switch to YouTube or Twitch. Hopefully that's better. Please tell me if you like if it's still blurry. I will try to change some other parameters. So the way you would do this first is that when you land on a new, I won't create this app like from zero because it would be too long during this hour. But so I created some parts of the app. But if you are creating from zero, you would have a blank Canva here, and you would have the first thing you would have to do is actually bring your data in. So you see here we've got what we call the plugin sidebar with all the data sources that you can add in your project. So you see we have like lots of them. The main one is REST API, but we have also SmartSuite. And when you add this plugin, you will land here, and the only thing we have to do is actually enter your API key and your workspace ID, and that's done. You're connecting to SmartSuite. So just to show you how it's done in SmartSuite, so your API key, you would find it here inside API key. So it's actually this token here. I won't show it for security reasons. And then for the workspace ID, it's actually the first ID here. Sorry, it's a bit small, but you find it in the URL of your base. And with these two things, when you enter them, inside WeWeb, you'll be able to add the plugin and basically add what we call a collection, which we'll do right now. So those are collections.
So essentially a collection would be a set of data?
Exactly, like for SmartSuite, it would match a table
to the app.
I think.
Okay, so
yeah,
SmartSuite
the
app
yeah.
would translate to a WeWeb collection, and that's your way of kind of importing a data set.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
cool.
So what I've done here is that I added the partners already and the contacts. And I still need to add the pipeline. So that's what we'll do right now. So I will click Add Collection, call it Pipeline, and select the SmartSuite source. Then I will continue. And here you will have to select the app you want to fetch data from. So now it's CRM, and so it's my partner CRM base, and inside it, the pipeline table. Here you can use filters that are basically native filters. So we gave a link to the SmartSuite API documentation because it's basically the same filters you would use if you were fetching from the API. But I won't use them in this example, so I would just hit continue. And you see I've got my data. So all that I can see here are actually my data from this table. So yeah, that's done. I have already my SmartSuite data that I can use in my project. Don't hesitate if anything is not clear. We can go back on some steps. So apparently Frank has a bit.
It seems that it's blurry
issues
for
with
some
the-
users,
yeah.
but not blurry for others. So I think
Yeah,
I'm not sure that there's anything we can do on our end.
Yeah.
So maybe on the replay would be a bit clearer, or maybe we can host a follow-up on.
Yeah, because normally I've got the fiber, so my connection should be okay. Yeah, I'm sorry for this. We've got a remark from Adam. So it's a bit more involved than software, but seems way more rewarding. So actually, because some people compare us to software and the likes, and we don't see ourselves as competitors because software and tools like it, I don't know if all the people know them, but it's basically tools where you have like pre-generated sets of elements that would use to create a website or a small web app. When WeWeb is more like Webflow, because you can customize everything. Because basically, if I click here, for example, on the search bar, on the button, on the title, you see that on the right, I've got my CSS sidebar. So I can modify all the CSS, the design of the app to match, for example, if you want to match your design system, your company's design system, if you want to do a custom design, you could do this. And we are following the web best practices in the sense that, for example, this is a div. And I mean, pretty much everything here is a div. So we follow like the flexboxes, CSS grid paradigms. So it's a bit harder to learn, but it's closer to the web standards, meaning that you can create really powerful web apps that are really customizable and match your needs. Yeah. And so now that I have my data inside in my collection inside WeWeb, what I would do normally is that I would go here to the Add panel and search for the Kanban elements, because I want to have a Kanban like Trello, for example. So the thing you would have to do is actually grab this and drop it here on your screen so that it appears in your app. What I'll do here though is that I won't do this because I already have an empty Kanban here for the purposes of this webinar, and I will just what we call bind it to the data. So what you do in WeWeb is that you bring data from your backend, and then you're telling WeWeb where to display this data inside your app. And we call this a binding because you bind the data from the backend to the front end. So to do this, I would click on my Kanban element, which is also here. I would go in the settings, and you see here I've got an items element that has a plug icon. And everything that has a plug icon in WeWeb could be bound to external data. Even the CSS and the design here, you see like everything has a plug icon. But here we'll use it only for the items that will display inside the Kanban. So I will bind it, and I will select my pipeline collection. And now, so nothing is displaying right now, because then I will have to tell WeWeb, like WeWeb knows that the data inside your Kanban is coming from SmartSuite, but then you will have to tell WeWeb which part of every record to display in the Kanban. So for example, I will have to tell, for example, WeWeb to display the title somewhere, the partner, the contact, the type, and the status. So I will have to do this right now. First thing I will do is I will create my stack, because you see here I've got also an empty column. So what I want is that I want columns that match my status inside SmartSuite. So I will just check what are the options here. So I've got scheduled, qualified, closing, and lost. So I will do this. Qualified. Closing.
While you're doing that, I'm just going to highlight a comment here. I see Vasquez is saying that we see an example of using the collection lists in WeWeb to display data from SmartSuite. So I think that's what you're working on right now. It's kind of pulling in SmartSuite info. Once you actually, so I guess maybe you can walk us through that. So essentially you have to set up a collection, but then you have to somehow display it on the page and add a page element, correct?
Yeah, I'm seeing the comments right now. So some elements like the Kanban, but you've also, like, we have the collection list, we have the data grid, this kind of elements, the table, they expect multiple records from your backend. So for example, a Kanban is just a set of cards that come from your backend. Your data grid that we use on the other pages is a table with each line being a record. So what you do in WeWeb is that you bind it to a whole collection, because a collection is basically a set of records. And then inside the element, you will tell what to display for each record. So here it displayed magically because this Kanban was already bound to the right keys, but I will show you this by doing it by hand. But yeah, you've got these elements that expect a list of records. I can show you this really easily, maybe with a more in an easier way with if I'm doing a collection list. So let me search for it. Collection lists. So it will be really ugly, just like for the sake of the explanation. So here you see I've got a collection list with items inside it. What I will do is that here I have my items. I will also bind it to the pipeline collection list. And then you see that now I have as many items as I have records in my collection, because WeWeb knows that it's bound to this collection. And what I can do, for example, here, this text, now I can bind it, and I'm seeing the content. So here with your faces, I will just switch and then move us again. But here I see the content of the first item in the list. And now I know that, for example, I can bind the title, and automatically the title was bound for each item. And that's the way you create layouts inside WeWeb, because then you can also drag and drop images, you can drag and drop buttons, everything you want, and everything is bindable. So you could bind, for example, this image is bound to a URL from my collection. This is only a text, but I've got, text, images, anything. So hopefully that does answer your question.
Yeah, very cool. I see Adam over here is saying explaining stuff like binding helps a lot, because that's the hardest part to understand.
Yeah, that's because that's the thing. We are really different from other products, because we only the front end. So actually, and we have to explain to WeWeb where to put the data. because the design is completely custom. So we don't know before where you want to put your data. That's why we have this binding, what we call the binding. So here I will bind it to the status. And for example, let me show it to you again. Normally, like the card would be empty and have some text like this. So what I would do is that I would click on this text, click bind, and then grab the title here from my payload. And you see all the texts are now part of the, are now bound to the SmartSuite data. I can show you this, for example, with maybe another field. Yeah, sorry, you were about to say something?
Yeah, no, I just want to clarify for users, how would you explain the concept of binding to, in the easiest way possible? Is it simply taking a visual element and essentially connecting it to a data element to say, dynamically display this piece of data in this visual element, and then you can have things like kanban where you have multiple cards, and it's essentially, I think is that how you would kind of break it down? So I guess that's like coming from SmartSuite, like all your UI is pre-built, and you have the ability to add UI pre-built UI elements. Over here in WeWeb, like it's a completely, it's a canvas board. You can paint whatever you want.
Yeah.
And so you have to really specify how to do things, which gives you a tremendous amount of power on how the front end looks. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. Like you would tell WeWeb, I want this parameter in the app to be the value that is stored here in my backend. So for example, in SmartSuite, because that could be anything. Like it's not only text like our visual, that could be also like CSS. And here it's in the case of a list, but for example, let's take this simple title. If I want to bind, for example, the text, I could also go in a specific collection, then take the first element because that's the first element and grab the title. And I know that this text, if I change it, I will show you this, by the way. It's in SmartSuite. So Slimitel strategic partnership. So if I change this title, my bad. Strategic partnership. And if I put 2, and if I were to grab the data back from my backend, you see that it was updated. So it's really like the value which is inside your base at the moment. And here we had to click a button to update it, but there's ways also in the app to update it on the fly, so that when your user, for example, is updating a record, you could tell WeWeb to fetch the data again, so that it will be displayed, like the new data will be displayed right away. So yeah, so I've got my Kanban working. And basically here I've got some more complex use cases. I won't go into the details here inside the webinar, but basically you can use what we call formulas that are kind of like Excel functions to interact with your data. So here I'm asking, because you see the contact is actually a linked record to the pipeline record. So when I fetch the data from the pipeline inside WeWeb, here I've got an ID. I don't have like JCBane and the image and stuff. So everything that's inside this table, I don't have it. So the way I've done it is that I created also a contact collection, and then I'm asking WeWeb with the lookup formula. So this is like we've got lots of formulas, but basically this is like a VLOOKUP in Excel. So it will check that the value is the same as another one is to collection and give you back the object. So here I'm telling in my take the ID, the user ID, the contact ID in the pipeline collection, checked in the contact collection, and then I want to get back the image. So this is basically, this looks random, but it's actually the key for the image in the SmartSuite API. And that's something I think you're working on right now, if I'm not mistaken, Avi. But yeah, like the keys in SmartSuite, you see most of the time they're using random IDs. So you would have to dig into the data to find the data you actually want to bind.
Okay, I see a question coming in from Thomas. Do you have pre-made workflows? Example, moving a card to another column changes the status, or do you have to set it manually with actions and so on?
Yeah, so that depends. That's exactly what I wanted to show. So thank you for this question. That depends on what you want to do in your backend. So we don't have them pre-made, but we have like events to react to create workflows that will update. So for example, here, because it's a Kanban, if I go on the right, so here I've got the design, but if I go here, I've got what we call workflows to react to user interaction. And I've got one which is called onItemMoved. And basically this is an event that the Kanban will trigger every time someone is moving a card from one stack to another stack. And what I do is that because I've got the SmartSuite plugin, I'm able to add actions that are tied to SmartSuite. So for example, I could get a record, create a record, update a record, or delete a record. We've got also this action that I will show you after, get field choices for like single choices, single select fields and multi-select fields, but we'll get to this after. But basically here, what I'm doing is that I'm doing a update a record. I'm passing in the record ID I want to update. So if I go inside, so here I've got all the variables that I can use in WeWeb. So you've seen the formulas, here are the collections, here are the variables that are actually stored inside my WeWeb app. So they are like tied to my WeWeb app. And I've got also this, which is the data that is coming from my event. So basically this changes every time the Kanban is updated. This will be replaced by the data of the card which was updated. So what I can do is that I can say, yeah, I want the ID of the card, of the record that was updated. So I can send it back to SmartSuite so that SmartSuite knows that it has to update this specific record. And then I can set up fields that I want to update. So here I selected only status. And what I do is that I use the value that's from my column that was like, for example, sorry. Let's get back. My user is dragging a card from one stack to one another. So I will get the final stack, for example, scheduled, lost, closing, and I will use the ID of this status and send it back to SmartSuite to update the status inside SmartSuite. So that's specific for SmartSuite because SmartSuite expects a value which is an ID. But for example, in other tools, it could be only like a string of characters. So it could be only scheduled, for example. So here you will have to actually learn the API of the tool you're using. So here the SmartSuite API docs, and just use the right formulas and the right values to update the record. And thanks to this, so Slimitel is actually scheduled, so we can see this here. And if I update it in WeWeb to qualified, you see it changed to qualified in real time. And so for the question, are the data bindings bidirectional? Can you use all the CRUD methods? Exactly. That's what the actions are. So that's how you create a web app, because what we'll do just after is that we'll create records inside SmartSuite from the WeWeb app. But then you can also like delete records, update records as we've done. And a collection is basically a get record. So you're just reading the records. So yeah, you can basically CRUD inside SmartSuite using WeWeb. And for people that don't know CRUD is an acronym that is really like is used to basically say a web app, because web app, what they do is that they create, read, update, or delete records in the backend. That's all they do. So yeah, let's get back to the WeWeb app. And now let's say I want to be able to add a new deal in my pipeline. So what I created is that I created a button that on click displays displays a model with a form. So you see, with all the data that I will have to send to SmartSuite. And what we have to do now is simply to create a workflow when the form is submitted to send the data back to SmartSuite. So to do this, I will select my form container, add a workflow, and on submit, I will use the create a record action. So let me check, because I'm kind of cheating because I have got a second screen in case of. I'm just checking if I'm not forgetting anything. So yeah. Then again, I will have to select the right base inside SmartSuite. So here it's the partner CRM, the pipeline. And it's not a get a record, sorry, it's a create a record. Yep. So CRM pipeline. And you see here, thanks to our integration, WeWeb was able to get back all the columns that are already in my SmartSuite base. So you don't have to recreate them. What you will do is you will simply bind them to a value from your form. So if I go back here, for example, and I add data, so Airbnb CRM status qualified and marketing. So if I enter data here, and then I go back in my workflow, I will have to bind each of these records to the value that is actually inside my form. So for example, the title, I can go in the variables, and you see for all the inputs that are currently in the forms in WeWeb, we create a value you can bind to. So this is what I entered in the title in my form, so Airbnb CRM. So I could bind it. Then I've got to do the same with the partner. So the partner is a bit more complex because actually, I've got to send back a partner ID, which is another collection. So I will have to use a formula for this. So here, the contact dropdowns give me the ID of the partner I selected. So here you see this dropdown. It's also bound, and it's bound to the contact collection. Sorry. So, and what it does is that it displays the name of the person, but it will give me back the ID of the person. And what I have to do is that I have to send back the right ID to SmartSuite. So I will go back in my workflow, and then I will get back. I've got the ID already, so what I'm doing is, yeah, I don't even have to use formulas, sorry. So, oops, sorry. Getting back into it. So what I will do is that I will get back the ID of the contact. And it should be in contact. Yeah, sorry. I've written partners, but partners is almost the same. So, okay. So partner is actually, yeah, I have to use a formula because partner, it's a bit more complex. A partner is tied to a contact and is not tied to the pipeline directly. So if you see here, the pipeline is tied to a contact, and what we'll do is that we'll ask WeWeb to check the right partner from the contact. So for example, if I'm assigning Jesse to a new pipeline, I want WeWeb to automatically send Glamotex to SmartSuite. So then I will use a formula. And I will say, in my dropdown, give me the ID of the person, and then find it in the contact collection. So here, it's giving me back Camila, which is the right one, the one that we use in the dropdown. Then I want the company from this person. So the company is in, so that's the thing with the IDs where you have to search a bit, but I think it's here. Yeah, right. You see it's Sabmila, and I will need this ID back. So what I can do is that I can ask WeWeb to only get this key, so it will give me back this value. So then I can use a new formula from WeWeb, which is called getKeyValue, which basically gets a key from an object. So UCNTX, and you see it's giving me back only the company, and it's an like it's a list. So I want the first company, so I will use the index 0, and then grab the ID, and that's it. I have my company ID. So that might seem a bit complex, but hopefully we have the WeWeb Academy to help on this because it's only logic, and this is specific to the SmartSuite API. If you were to use another system, or maybe you have another base in another table in SmartSuite, this formula would be different. So, and I won't get into the details except if you guys are all asking for it. But basically, just tell yourself that it's like using Excel functions inside WeWeb to grab the right data you want inside your data set to send it back to your backend. Then I've got the type. So the type is just what's inside my dropdown. So type dropdown, and the status is the same with the ID of the dropdown. And hopefully, if I was good, from the first try, if I submit the deal, should be added to SmartSuite. Yeah, so it's here. Nice. So it was added.
Very cool. So that's a great example of essentially how you can build out a completely custom applications, right? You can have control on every last inch of the screen, and essentially pull data from SmartSuite and display records. You can make updates to those records from WeWeb, and the update happens instantly in SmartSuite.
Yeah.
You can create new records from WeWeb, and it creates new records in SmartSuite. You can delete records from WeWeb to SmartSuite, and so essentially you have full sync between your data, and really what's happening is SmartSuite is the backend database, WeWeb is the front end application.
Exactly. And then you can add like new things. It's also in your workflow, so I will go really fast because we are lacking a bit of time. But here I created my record. Now I can say to WeWeb, fetch again my pipeline collection so that the data will be updated in the WeWeb app, so you can test it. And then I will use a change variable value action to close the model. So the model is in new deal, and I will switch it to false. And normally, if I do this, you see I've got my Airbnb CRM and my model was closed. So then if I want to retry again, so Sophia, I don't know, using segment, closing, type, technology, you see it's here. And users can drag and drop them already. So if I go back to segments, it's here. So you see it's scheduled. So really I've like what Avi said, creation, updating in real time, reading data from SmartSuite to WeWeb and vice versa. And yeah.
Very cool. And I'm curious, maybe you can walk us through like typical use cases. Obviously over here we're seeing a CRM. What are the other use cases you're seeing people use a back end of something like SmartSuite, a no-code database, and building out, like what kind of applications do you see built on WeWeb?
That's a great question. So basically what our users are creating most of the time are anything like any web app, but I would say mostly SaaS apps, so software as a service. We have a lot of directories, like for example, marketplaces, or everything when you want to list data for companies internally with access restrictions. So for example, admins can only see this or do that. And you've got the same for B2C, because a lot of users are using us for B2C apps. And we've got, mostly client directories, SaaS, CRMs. Custom CRMs for small companies is a big thing, because, like, as I said, you could still use HubSpot or Salesforce, but it's really like for big companies and it's not really versatile. And I think the last one would be, kind of like small apps that are using complex, when you want to mix like lots of integration. So for example, you could totally do a web app in WeWeb using SmartSuite as the database and add like some AI stuff on top of it using the OpenAI plugin, for example, or using like your own authentication. So in that case, or using like the Algolia search, in that case, you would use like WeWeb, because you would be able to use all the integrations to bring it to your app.
Very cool. And would you be able to? So let's say someone, let's say a marketplace, right? Like let's say you wanted to build your own version of Airbnb or Uber or whatever that is. Like, could you actually build that on WeWeb? Is there a way for to create user profiles and for each user to only see their data and not other people's data and so on?
Yeah, exactly. I can show you this just quickly. Up. Sorry, my computer is a bit slow right now, but let me show it to you. So bring back my screen. Okay. So have you seen here, we've got also what we call like the authentication, because WeWeb doesn't handle authentication, except in this project, I use the WeWeb authentication because it's the easiest to set up. But what we recommend is using like more robust authentication system like Xano or like token-based auth with your own backend or Auth0. And when you use an authentication system, so for example, if I were to log in also in the app here, so you see here in my variables, like I can see, you can also see them on the left. So let me bring back my cursor. So at the end, you see here, I've got all the data from my current user. So it knows that it's actually me with my ID, my roles, and that I'm authenticated. So you could do stuff like private accesses for pages. What we've done here is like only authenticated users can access this page, but I could be able to create groups and roles. So for example, only admins are able to see this page. And then you could do stuff like, for example, filtering this data in the collection for the current user. For example, let's say the pipeline would be tied to specific salespeople. So what you could do is that use the SmartSuite native filters here and actually bind them to the current user ID. So that wouldn't work because I don't know the native filters schema by heart, but I'm pretty sure there's a way in SmartSuite that you would be able to tell, give me back only the deals that are tied to this user ID, and then WeWeb would only fetch these deals. So you wouldn't, you like the user wouldn't see deals that are not tied to him or her.
Yep.
So
exactly. Okay, I see. I'm just going to run through a few comments over here. So Thomas Richard says, in my point of view, WeWeb's greatest leverage on Bubble is scalability. What is the limit with SmartSuite API max hit per second?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I don't know it by heart. Maybe you know it, Avi, but I think it's in the docs.
I don't have it exactly in front of me, but it's very scalable. Like we're seeing very big applications being built. And then I see over here, Sunya's clean sweep is asking, what is the best way to learn WeWeb? I want to build a custom system for my cleaning business.
That's a great question, and we are working on that as we speak. So I will send it to you. But we have what we call the WeWeb Academy. So I will send it to you guys in the chat. And it's actually it's more than just learning how to use WeWeb. We want to teach people how to program visually, because WeWeb is, you could do any design in WeWeb. The thing is, it's really close to web standards. So what I showed you, like using the workflows, like the design, is actually close to CSS using APIs. So it's a bit close to code. But the cool thing is that when you know how to do this, you're able to do anything you want. So to do this, we created this academy that will teach you like the basic concepts of how to use WeWeb, but also how to structure backend. So for example, your page in SmartSuite, how to use an API, how to do CSS and this kind of things. And then when you're good at this, I would recommend going into the WeWeb docs, so docs.weweb.io, that are more like descriptive of what's actually inside, what's usable inside WeWeb. And we already have a page about SmartSuite. So you see when I'm kind of explaining how to use the SmartSuite plugin. So yeah.
Okay, and I see Brian is chiming in to help to answer the question from Thomas. So thank you, Brian. Brian is saying the current limit is 5 requests per second per API key. And Vaskin is sharing, thank you, Vaskin, for chiming in. The SmartSuite API limit of the professional plan is 50,000 records per month. And I will share that we are working on being able to, essentially, if you hit your API limit on the plan that you on, you can potentially buy more API actions or, without, essentially without having to upgrade to another plan, but just paying for the API actions. And so in the 50,000 is out of the box, 50,000 API calls out of the box on the Pro plan, and obviously that's much larger on the larger plans. And then potentially you can scale that by paying for the API calls. Very, very cost effective. And I see Brian is asking, Vaskin is asking in the chat, is 50,000 per month and 5 records per second both considered? I guess, thank you, Brian, for chiming in. Hopefully Brian can answer Vaskin's question. I see we have one question that we may have potentially missed, so I'll just bring that back up for you.
I'm also checking the questions.
Is it possible to bind forms in we receive data from WeWeb Forms to SmartSuite?
What you would do is that you would, so as I showed, you would bind, let me show you, it would be easier. But you see here on my form, actually, you would use the workflow to react on the on-submit. And what you would do is that, for example, let's say you want to create an edit form and you actually have like the data from the record already. What you could do is that you could, on any input, bind what we call the init value, so the initial value. And you could say, yeah, for example, I want to get the value which is currently in my data. So you see here, you would have your data, and then the user would be able to edit it, and then you would send it back to the backend, so to SmartSuite. And that's how you would do it. So yeah, that's doable.
Okay, excellent. And I see we're at 4 minutes. We'll be at time. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. In the meantime, obviously, obviously you mentioned WeWeb is definitely a learning curve for anyone who hasn't interacted with something like Bubble or Webflow or has experience with visual programming. And then, so you mentioned there's an academy for those who actually want to upskill and learn it, and there's specific SmartSuite documentation on how to get that done, and obviously general WeWeb education. Obviously, your YouTube channel is obviously a great place to get started.
Yep.
What about folks who don't have the luxury of taking the time to upskill and learn? And obviously, as you showed, it's quite complex for the average person who doesn't have experience to get up to speed. If someone does want to build front-end applications using SmartSuite as the backend, what would be the best way for them to have that done? Do you guys have like services internally where you offer that, or partners?
Yes, so we have partners also that are listed on our website. So agencies that are WeWeb accredited. So we work closely with them, and that can help you on these matters. And we are beginning to also train some of these agencies on SmartSuite so that they are able to handle both use cases. So like your SmartSuite data and your WeWeb front end. And basically they would do this. I know the question is like, compared to a normal agency, it's way less expensive compared to like developer agencies. And the cool thing is that we are really working closely with them, so they won't get stuck. We will help them if they are left there and they need something. We'll help them also. So yeah, I would recommend going through these agencies or contacting us, because we can also like recommend some agencies, and we've got them in all over the world. I think we've got lots in Asia now,
Yep.
Latin America, North America, Europe, obviously. So yeah, I would
Yeah,
do
and
this.
I'll just echo that. Obviously, one of the great thing about this SmartSuite WeWeb partnership is both companies are very focused on their partners and enabling partners, which are essentially consultants and agencies that are there to help you set up your workflows and set up your applications and processes. And so I'd recommend, if someone wants to set up front-end applications using SmartSuite as the backend and doesn't have the time or luxury to upskill on how to actually use WeWeb, or wants to get the things done quickly, is reach out to the SmartSuite team or the WeWeb team. We'd be happy to connect you with partners who are familiar with both platforms. We're working closely with partners to make sure that they're skilled on both platforms and have the ability to deliver. And the last thing I'll share is that the prices are very cost effective. I've seen the prices from agencies. And they're we're talking very cost-effective prices to get set up. I see we have a question that came in over here from Visualized IT.
Yep.
The SmartSuite / WeWeb support referential integrity cascade updates. I think this is more of a technical question. You're probably better off reading it.
So that's really technical, and hopefully I know this because I know SQL databases. The thing is, it depends on SmartSuite, so I won't be able to answer this. You'd have to ask the technical people at SmartSuite. But basically, he's asking like, if you're doing like a bulk update or bulk deletes, like if you have one that fails, you need everything to fail. So that's how SQL databases work. And honestly, I don't have the answer, but I think if you're asking SmartSuite support, they will be able to tell you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm sure our support team would be able to help. So if you're in the product, if you want to contact support, we'd love to get back to you on the proper answer. And okay, we're exactly at time. Anything else you wanted to close out with?
No, I'm just seeing Oscar, who is asking for content in Spanish. So I have just one thing to say about this. We were in Barcelona some weeks ago with the team at WeWeb, and we're working with no-code hackers to do this, because we don't have the time to do content except that in English, sadly. But they will help us to do content in Spanish. So hopefully in the weeks to come, you will have like the first YouTube videos and courses in Spanish.
That's awesome. And we'll close out with one last nice comment from Richard Thomas. Thank you. These two tools look awesome. They were appealing by themselves, but together it seems very promising. What a great way to close off on a high note. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a nice day, everybody. Thanks a lot for your questions, and feel free to try SmartSuite, to try WeWeb, give us all your feedback. And again, we're really, like, if you have any issue, ping us in the community, in the chat. We're here to help, and hopefully you'll be able to build using WeWeb and SmartSuite. And thank you again, Avi, for having been there. It was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for hosting, and thank you for showing us and answering all the questions. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.